Good evening and welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting, January 17th, 2023. It is currently 5:32. Can everyone please stand to pledge allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mrs. Bronston Rizzo.
Present.
Mr. Ferranti.
Here.
Miss Gravelisi.
Here.
Mr. Kingston.
Here.
Mrs. Milbury Ellis.
Here.
Miss Ty.
Here.
Mayor Rigo.
First item is the consent calendar. Anyone have questions on the minutes that were sent to us yesterday? Seeing none, moving on to the warrants. Anyone have any questions on the warrants? Mr. Ferranti?
I already emailed Mr. Cruz my questions, and he responded to me, so I appreciate the answers. Right now, I have none.
Okay. Anyone else? Yeah, I would think we need to discuss because someone else could have something in their mind related. And he came.
Sure. Our hope is to collect questions in enough time to put them into the actual packet that posts. But if you have questions after a Thursday, then I'll reply directly. Robin needs the information by the Thursday. So just points of interest. There were 2 reimbursements made to high school ELL teachers. They were registered to attend a professional development, and the organization would not accept purchase orders. So they were forced to register on their credit card, and we reimbursed them within the 30 days. Lightspeed Technology, we purchased 10 audio-visual enhancement units for districts who need them throughout the district, so they are inventoried at SPED and used as necessary. Auker's company has been installing interactive touch screens off of our ESSER grants at a number of different schools. And we manage our grants to the penny. It's nearly impossible to do 100% spending, so you always have a little bit left over. So you'll notice different direct payments of return of surplus funds, usually for less than 0.1% of the grant, but the accuracy in the bookkeeping is important. So there were two grants that had a couple $100 that were returned after all purchase orders were closed.
Anyone else have questions? I just have a small one. Dr. Kelly, you might be able to answer this, or Matt, and it's just out of curiosity. I was looking at number 275, and it said ELL board game, and that sounded interesting, so now my curiosity got to me.
It would actually, Jill Herwig would have made that purchase from Comprehensive Health, so it may be something used in a nursing setting, but I don't know. Happy to pull the PO and send a
No,
detailed invoice.
it was just curiosity, so I can ask Jill about it. I just was interested in what kind of board games. It could be a great learning experience for people, so, no, that's it for me. Anyone else? Questions on the warrants? Ms. Ty?
Thank you. Well, I might be a little bit going astray on this, but it's a chance to ask some questions, one of which I referred to in our previous discussion. And I'm looking at the official fees. Are we having difficulty getting officials, Dr. Kelly? I don't expect you to be able to answer that question in any detail, but in a broad sense.
I know that in a broad sense, and Mrs. Bronston Rizzo probably knows this as well, being part of on the board for the MIAA, but I know that in a broad sense, yes, it's been very challenging to find officials to work at our different athletic games. It's one of the things that we talked about a little bit when we did the Hate in Sports conference with the then Attorney General Maura Healey, now Governor Maura Healey, and others, is that way that people are communicating with each other and the vitriol that they're using and the negativity is really pushing people away from participating as referees, coaches, and in other official capacities for youth sports, which is a real shame.
Well, I understand, and this is, Mrs. Rizzo, this is something I just mentioned, that I know you in your position in the MASC being president, and maybe Dr. Kelly being president of the Superintendent's Association, and the mayor being president of the Mayor's Association, that they could do something about a bill, because I know that there is some talk, and I have even seen a draft of it, that we would give people who are acting as officials at our athletic events the same protection that teachers would get. They are not outsiders, because, I mean, when it comes right down to, if we don't have officials, the kids can't have games. And at any rate, we need to be safe, our kids need to be safe, the officials need to be safe, and I know that there is a movement, Mrs. Rizzo, and you might want to speak about that. I know that Newton has done something of it, and I think one or two other cities, maybe Woburn might have been one of them, I'm not sure. But they are pushing to have a bill go forward that we would be able to give them that protection. And
Yeah,
whatever small amount
where
of-
they are not public officials, they still
Yeah.
work in our school departments for
Yeah.
us. So, you're right, Newton is big. They've been filing, they're trying to get some type of resolution to put forward on that. MIAA has not been as,
Aggressive?
yeah, that's the word, aggressive on doing it. They have spoke about it. And they had said the eastern area of the state is not having as much of a difficult time as the other side of the state. And like a lot of times we look at maybe the urban areas might have a more difficult time, but they're saying they're not finding that. Even though
Really?
we are still lacking people that want to come forward and do the job.
Yeah.
I mean, it's small money.
I know.
Small money for doing a job with no respect whatsoever. But no, if you want, we can put something forward for that too, to support.
Yes, I think
I
that would
think
be
it'd be great.
wonderful. Yeah.
No, it would be.
Do that.
I can
mean,
also contact MIAA tomorrow to see if they're going to push
What
anything.
they're doing.
We haven't met since November, so,
Yeah, it would. I mean, I know our experiences, at our games, we save people's lives. Everyone jumps in when there's an emergency and saves people's lives. And I know Mr. Kingston can testify to all of that. I mean, our behavior is good, but the horrible thing is that just one person can do it. And I think we need to have some safeguards so that we can get people who will come and do it. So thank you. I appreciate that support.
okay, where were we? Okay, on to financial reports.
Mrs. Rizzo?
Yes, Mr. Ferranti.
Matt, I have several questions, but my biggest question is the sub-accounts for all the schools. Every one of them is well over 50%, and we're only halfway through the year. And I know I had a conversation with this before about it, and I know we have problems with teachers, I get that. What are we gonna do to subsidize all the schools? I mean, I'm looking at, percentages, 85, 76, 72, 95, 99. They're all big-time numbers for subs.
Yep, so the way that we deal with this is, at the start of the year, you budget an additional $110,000 in the district-wide substitutes accounts for unexpected or exorbitant numbers of leaves of absences that happen. So we wait until the fourth quarter. We analyze which of the schools got hit the hardest and have gone into a deficit, not with daily subs that they're abusing, but with people who are out for 2-3 months or the whole year. and then we'll reclassify accordingly in the fourth quarter to bring those accounts out of a deficit. Right now, you can see it trending toward that number.
It's out of-
So in the third quarter, some may be over 100%, but we have money in reserve waiting to allocate accordingly to the school in the fourth quarter.
But I'm not even sure that the 110,000 we put aside is gonna be enough at the rate we're going right now. It looks like, you know, we're gonna even have a shortage because there's not a lot left there, but,
It's
you know,
110, right?
Dr. Kelly?
Line 126?
Yes, it's line 126, and you'll see that right now it has a $360,000 available. 110 of that is what I just referenced. The rest is, we actually have fewer long-term, I'm out for the rest of the year subs than we've normally had. So there's hopefully going to be enough surplus in that line between those two things to cover the daily sub deficit. So we'll look at it again like that in the third quarter and see what's available, what's been used, and then in May or June, we'll do the reclassification.
okay. I have a couple other questions and I'll make them quick. On page 5, obviously the transportation is a big-time problem. You know, we're at about a $3 million deficit through this paper, and I think the last time you sort of projected it'd be probably a couple of million. Is there any help coming with this thing, where the costs are gonna be reduced, or is it just gonna keep going out of control? Because that's what it seems to be right now.
Right, so we have $1.1 million coming in from, to support this from grant funding. So that will take care of some of this deficit. A number of these runs exist right now on paper, but the students may or may not stay in the district or remain homeless or still be in that SPED program for the rest of the year. So again, in the fourth quarter, we'll close out what we can. There will still be a gap, the best we can see, of 500,000 to $1 million, and that's what we're doing the analytics on and meeting with the city side on to look at. So the numbers that you're seeing here will be scaled back, but that doesn't mean it's not something that we still need to revisit again in the budget process this year.
All right, and page 5, it seems like we have a new category, number 175, student services, PIC overtime. I didn't realize that the PIC had overtime.
Yep, do you want, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think that you'll remember that we got into a little bit of a jam in August when we suddenly had a huge influx of students, and we didn't have the position filled where the person did the EL testing. And so we were paying others to come in and cover that and do that testing. So that's why you see that number there. Not a huge amount.
Okay. Is that pretty much, is it gonna be, do we anticipate more, Dr. Kelly, or do we figure that's just gonna be?
We
level?
don't, we're fully staffed right now in terms of new students coming in. We do have an opening with the transfer of Nick Maglione that I told you about last month, but, so we still have to fill his previous position, but other than that, the PIC is fully staffed.
Okay. And Matt, my last question on page 7, number 244, tuition residential schools with about a $400,000 deficit. Just a quick explanation why.
Yeah, so this is the first year that the DSC is asking us to report residential outside placements separately from just daytime outside placements. So we just took a shot at a budget for that and put in 600. We're well beyond that. You can see the line above it has a surplus. So between those two tuition out accounts for private schools, we're in the black. And then you'll see a much larger budget in May when you're voting for residential schools for next year. So it's a learning curve this year to see how many students are placed in 365-day programs.
Thank you very much.
Any other members of financial report? Okay, move on to communications. We have a,
There is one
from do we want to read that into the record? Ms. Gravellisi.
Thank you, Mayor Arrigo. This communication came from the Election Commissioner, Paul Fahey, thanking us for our cooperation during the year with our school calendar and election days. I'll read it. It says, "Dear Mayor Arrigo and school committee members, on behalf of the Board of Elections Commission, I'd like to thank the school committee and the school department for their outstanding cooperation and assistance with our elections in 2022. The support we received throughout the school department was exemplary and made the challenge of running accessible and transparent elections easier. We hope to continue this strong partnership in 2023. We know that the municipal preliminary election would be held on Tuesday, September 19th, 2023, and that the municipal general election will be on Tuesday, November 7th, 2023. I will continue to keep close communications with Superintendent Kelly about any changes during 2023. Thank you. Sincerely, Paul Fahey."
Any members have any comments or? Okay, place on file?
Consent calendar.
Ms. Gravellisi. Oh. Okay, you're good, okay. So we're on to personnel items. Doc- Oh, it says none. Yep. Personnel items, any members have any questions or comments? We're here. We don't have to, no rush, Mrs. Rizzo.
Yeah, there is. We start the next meeting in 5 minutes.
We've got 9 minutes, it's okay.
There were two positions that I saw on School Spring, and I just wasn't sure if it was a name change of the positions. They weren't familiar to myself. I'm going to apologize, and I will ask you later, because I really don't
I
see
think I
it.
know at least one of them was a position at the high school that was through the grant that we had talked about. I don't know, Dr. McCalber, if you want to explain a little bit more.
It is the grant-funded position for the high schools supporting students.
Where?
Last month I gave it to you.
Right here. Thank you, Mr. Ferranti. So one was Career Development Coordinator, and the other was Student Engagement at Revere High School. Is the Career Development a change in title?
It's a high school position. Was it a high school position?
I don't believe so. Student Engagement was?
Okay.
But if you can get, just out of curiosity, because I want to be able to give the right titles to the people. I saw it on School Spring, that's why. I might want a job.
Okay, any other members on personnel items? Seeing none, we'll move on to the acceptance of donations, gifts, and grants.
Mayor
Ms. Gravellisi.
Thank you. I'd like to move this to the regular meeting so that we can just announce it to the public, what we've gotten for donations, as well as the school field trips.
Okay. We'll move that to new business, and then in the regular meeting of the school committee, is that? Okay.
Sounds
great.
good. Thank you.
Okay. School field trips. Oh, we're moving that as well?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep. The 23-24 school year calendar.
Well, I don't know. I have proposed a draft schedule to the committee. We have looked at it and refined it as much as we can, but as always the case, we're going to find some, quirks that we missed. One in particular that I know of is we don't have the dates yet for MCAS next year, so there might be some adjustment to the Wednesday half-days when we get that calendar, because we wouldn't want to take a half-day when there's going to be scheduled testing. And other than that, I think it's pretty traditional. Last year, the committee had made a motion that school not start prior to the Monday before Labor Day, and so we honored that adjustment. We have the 2 voting days, no school on September 19th, and a professional development day on November 7th. The traditional holidays that we've always recognized, a half-day before kids start for teachers in their buildings, the 10 half-days that we do for professional development, Thursday and Friday after Thanksgiving, a half-day on the Friday before the winter break. And with this schedule, barring any snow days, we would be finishing on Monday, June 17th.
Mrs. Rizzo.
So, Dr. Kelly, other than in our agenda for tonight, has this been given to the unions also?
It has not. I wanted to present it to the committee first, but without any protest, I'll pass it on to people.
Okay.
If I may, Dr. Kelly, I mean, I know that there are always things that somebody, after you have a chance to look at it, no matter how many times 29 people look at it, it's the 30th person
That's right, who finds the
that there's
mistake,
something.
always.
So I think that it should just be publicized as you see fit and for input.
So, a motion to accept the draft as is?
Second.
Roll call?
Mrs. Bronston Rizzo?
Yes?
Mr. Ferranti?
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi?
Yes.
Mr. Kingston?
Yes.
Mrs. Milbury Ellis?
Yes.
Ms. Ty?
Yes.
Mayor Rigo?
Yes. We'll move on to the Shore Collaborative Executive Board. Ms. Rizzo.
Yes, the executive board, by law, a school committee member from each district has to attend and be part of the board of directors for collaboratives. They meet the second Tuesday each month at 4:30 at Crest Ave. I have been doing this for 10 years and very proud to do it because I really enjoy the work that they do over there, and get to see a different perspective of our small learning classes and special ed. But at this point, I am asking for someone to take my place on the board of directors. I need a small break. I don't.
I'll take the responsibility, Stacy.
I love this girl.
That was easy. All right. Does that require a formal vote, Mrs. Rizzo?
Yes.
Okay. So is there a motion?
Motion to have committee member Aisha Milbury Ellis become part of the board of directors for the Shore Collaborative in Chelsea.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Roll call.
Mrs. Bronston Rizzo?
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti?
Yes.
Ms. Gravellisi?
Yes.
Mr. Kingston?
Yes.
Mrs. Milbury Ellis?
Yes.
Ms. Ty?
Yes.
Mayor Rigo?
Yes. Congratulations, Ms. Milbury
Congratulations
Ellis.
and thank you.
And thank you, Mrs. Rizzo. Thank you
And
to
so
Ms.
now I'm
Ellis.
available for the second Tuesday if you have to move.
And we'll wrap up with recognition discussion. Mr. Kingston.
2 items. One is something that doesn't have to be discussed in full tonight, maybe some input from Dr. Kelly. I would like to see, I had a retired teacher come to me a few years ago who was very upset. He had put 35 years, I don't remember the number. And he said, John, I walked out the door and nobody even said thank you. And he said, I really thought it was terrible. He said, I gave a lot of time and energy to education and to the kids I taught. And he said, a thank you from someone other than maybe the building principal and my colleagues would have been appreciated. So I think it's something we really need to look at. I don't think bringing them up here at 6 o'clock at night is maybe what they want. I would like to see a luncheon or something. Maybe after 10 years of service, you get a little something or whatever. I don't have all the details. I don't claim to. I think it's something that we should need to talk about, maybe send to a subcommittee. But I really think we need to recognize our employees. There's a national teacher shortage out there, and there's a national staff shortage. People don't want to work. Go out to a restaurant and try to get help. It's tough. So I think we need to do our best to do what we can for our employees and recognizing them for their time and service, and especially to the ones that may be retiring after, putting 30 years in a classroom. It's a lot. So I'd like to do that. That's number one. Number two, Evelyn Morris does a tremendous amount of work for the retired teachers. She has a luncheon every year. I've attended a number of times on behalf of the credit union and for myself. And I would like to bring her up next month and just thank her publicly for that. She said this might be her last one. She does have a small group of elves, I'll say, that help her, but I don't think without her drive and determination that luncheon wouldn't happen. She also does a newsletter every year, has all the retirees' phone numbers, emails. She spends an awful lot of time and energy on that, and I think she should be recognized for it. So I'd like to see that happen at our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kingston.
Form of a motion?
Ms.
I make a motion that we recognize Evelyn Morris at our next meeting, next scheduled meeting, whenever that is, and also that we look into the feasibility, possibly sending to one of the subcommittees, based on getting a recognition program started for the city, for these school department employees, all employees, not just teachers, all staff.
Right.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. There's a motion on the floor, but Ms. Gravellisi. Yeah. Yeah,
Second, I'll second.
I'll second it.
Second.
All right. Ms. Gravellisi, go ahead.
We all second.
Thank you, Mayor Arrigo, and thank you, Mr. Kingston, for bringing that up. I did make mention last month, and I'll make mention again. One of the cafeteria workers at the Garfield School reached out to me to let me know that one of their employees will have 30 years of service in March. She'll be 73 years old, and she's still working and employed at the Garfield cafeteria. So I would like to include her. Her name's Georgianne Leary. I'd like to include her on in recognition for her 30 years of service, and she's still working. And she's happy to go there every day and work full-time.
Okay, so we'll amend that motion.
Still in discussion?
Mrs. Rizzo.
Okay, here we go. I think it's great. I mean, our employees, but first, let's remember, they're Diane's employees. They work under Diane. And sometimes I look at it, perhaps the unions, like Evie Morris, my first job was with Evie Morris, and I've adored her. I've been deathly afraid of her, but I adore her. And she has done so much for our system. I mean, I can understand if someone wants to give someone an individual an award, but we also have to keep it in mind there's not really another Evie Morris, but there are some that are very much close to being Evie Morris. So I hate to see anyone being left out because they don't have a personal relationship with people. And then I look at it, who's going to do all the tracking of 10, 15, 20 years? And are we going to start charging, like our council members have to pay for all these recognitions? I think it's small money, but like $5 for every one that you're giving out. Mr. Mayor, am I wrong as far as the monetary? Mr. Frandy said I'm right.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with him.
Well, I will say that from even a city perspective, the city employees, there are different levels, and really, I think something that we could do better is recognizing folks on in an equitable fashion, right?
Right.
We a lot of times folks that work for the city for a long time will have their department head and have like, some kind of event for them. But there have been cases where we haven't really done.
And equitable.
Right, we haven't been equitable. And I think so, one of the, and this is a conversation that came up at a city council meeting as well, in terms of recognizing employees. And I think we should probably be, I just would caution that we be really thoughtful and be clear that we're going to do the same thing for everybody. Right, and so I think whatever that looks like, I
Right.
agree that in principle, I think we all agree in principle that something should be done, but it should be, I would even say the same for, it doesn't matter if you're a school department employee or a city employee, it should be the same thing, right?
Right.
It should be, everybody should be on the same page, and we haven't done that. And I think in no small, in no small part, due to the fact that, on the city side, we didn't even have policies and procedures around employment in the city. So how can you properly do that if you don't have, the right kind of policies and procedures in place? So I think the two of us, Dr. Kelly and I, can probably really come up with something
Yeah.
that makes sense for everybody.
I'm wondering even if, we both have fairly robust HR departments now that didn't used to exist, if this is something that we could even task them with, is defining what this would look like for maybe 10-year employees, 20-year employees, 30-year employees. And,
And I've always thought about this with the retirement at the end of the year. So I started, recognizing those names of the people that retired throughout the year. But to me, that was still not respectful that they only got to hear my melodious voice say their name. I had talked to Dr. Kelly about, even if they can't come to a school committee meeting, if we could have some kind of presentation that their picture with where they worked and the years they gave, if we could at least start that way, honoring those people that have worked for us and are lucky enough to retire. So I think it'd be great to do something and more conversation on it.
Yep. Okay. Ms. Ty?
What has always, before COVID, there was always a big party. And everybody who was retired and anybody else, John always came because we all belonged to the credit union. And whenever you were broke, you could go to John, but that was constant. And there was a time when we actually sent a letter to each person who was retiring, more or less a form letter. But you might write a special sentence if you, for somebody who had done an extraordinary, who had had an extraordinary career. So, yes, I think that, that the superintendent and the mayor can come up with something that will be consistent throughout the city, for everyone.
Right. Yeah, I think ultimately, we all agree that consistency would make the most sense, and, and doing it in a fair way, so that folks don't walk away saying, I didn't get anything, right?
well, the other thing is we have a number of employees who have either gone from the city side to the school side or the school side to the city side, and recognizing them in the same vein for their full service to the city, whether it was, 5 years here and 7 years there, would make sense.
Ms. Crevelisi?
Thank you, Mayor Arrigo. So just for clarification, since there is a motion on the floor, do we want to hold off until we have some data from Human Resources as to maybe once a year we'll do a recognition for everybody that did, 10 years, 20, 30, something like that? So are we holding off on, until we get some of the study done through Human Resources?
I think that makes the most sense. I don't, like, if everyone agrees with that. There was a piece that you wanted to recognize
Right.
one individual.
Correct,
Right,
but if we
okay.
want to hold off on, this motion that we have forward until there's some data and recognize everyone, you know what I mean, once a year for everyone who had 10 years, 20, 30.
Okay.
I just want clarification because I'm not sure where the motion's going or if we
Yeah,
want to hold
Ms.
off.
Kingston, go ahead. You're the maker of the motion.
On Ms. Morris, I'd like to do it sooner rather than later, and I just would rather, on that one. I understand the rest, I understand there's a lot involved. I wasn't bringing it up to get something done tonight and have something concrete. I just wanted to bring it up because it's on my mind. As far as the other one with Ms. Morris, I would really like to do it next month. That's something that I think.
So
would
can
be
I
important.
amend the motion, so that, for now, we are giving Ms. Leary and Ms. Morris, that Mr. Kingston and Ms. Grevalisi would like to recognize them next month, and after that, we're going forward and have discussion. But for right now, those two names were brought up, and
Yep. Okay, so a motion is made by Ms. Rizzo, amended motion by Ms. Rizzo that we recognize the two individuals who were named, and we'll get them before at our next meeting, we'll get them before us at our next meeting in February. Thank you. Okay, all right, so,
and I have 30 years. Ms. Ty, how many?
roll call on that motion.
Mrs. Bronston Rizzo,
Yes.
Mr. Ferranti.
Yes?
Ms. Gravelisi,
Yes.
Mr. Kingston.
Yes.
Mrs. Milbury Ellis.
Yes.
Ms. Ty.
Yes.
Mayor Rigo.
Yes. With that, we will adjourn our committee of the whole and move into our regular meeting of the Revere School Committee. Thank you.